Look, I think it's about time that I take you through exactly what happened at my first race of 2024 at Outlaw Half Nottingham. So, let's break it down. For those of you who don't know, I'm Josh, an A group triathlete based in London, and on this channel we talk all things triathlon training or triathlon product reviews. So if any of that sounds appealing, please hit that subscribe button. Like I said, Outlaw Nottingham Half is going to be my first race of the year, and this happened maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago now, so it has been a little while, but through training, other races and work commitments, I haven't quite been able to make this video a reality, so apologies for the lateness there. Look, anyone who follows the channel will have seen my videos where I had the most incredible time training and living in Girona for a few weeks, and that was one of the best things I've ever been able to do, and I came off of that 2 weeks before Nottingham, and that gave me incredible confidence to perform well. However, with confidence, at least personally, comes pressure, and I think that's going to be a theme throughout how we break this down. Admittedly, coming back from that camp, I had dealt with a little bit of unexpected illness. However, I still felt really fit and in a great position to do much better than I had done the previous year. I feel like I had crossed all my T's and dotted all my I's getting ready for this race. And leading up to the race, everything felt good. Travel up to Nottingham was fine, hotel was perfect, felt pretty fresh the morning of the race. However, when we got to the race, the parking situation was absolute calamity. Luckily, the race start was delayed by 5 minutes, but they didn't quite make up for the kind of 30 or 40 minutes we set waiting in a queue to get into the car park to actually park. Due to the field being really muddy, and I think some cars got stuck or something, and that meant that I was sprinting from transition to the start, which anyone who has done Nottingham will know they're not quite next to each other, unfortunately, so I was sprinting down to the other end of the lake to make sure that I didn't miss the first wave. Now I made it there. Luckily, I was able to get my wetsuit on without putting too many more holes in the darn thing, but I was pretty far back in the start of my wave, and because they were compressing it a little bit, they set off my wave and the wave after at the same time, and personally that led to a really hectic swim start. I could never get into a group where I felt confident. I was always overtaking people or slightly being passed by someone slightly faster than me. I could just never quite find my rhythm. I felt aerobically good, but I didn't have any snap. I didn't have the ability to chase and stay on faster people's feet. There was just something missing in it, and I think that will be a theme throughout this race recap. But coming out the swim, I was still feeling pretty confident and pretty positive. I didn't know this obviously when I got out the water, but I swam about a minute slower than last year. And those good vibes from a pretty decent swim kind of continued out onto the bike. I felt really good and very comfortable and in control at the start of the bike. I knew that I hadn't overswum. If anything, I had underswum, and so it was pretty ready to make an impact and kind of push forward on the bike. The bike course for Nottingham this year was slightly changed, so the first, I think maybe 10 or 15k were the same, and then the middle parts used some different roads which I hadn't had a chance to pre-ride. So for those kind of first 30 minutes, even into some of the new section, maybe 45 minutes in, I felt really strong, but after about 45 minutes or so, I started to develop quite a bad cramping pain in my right hip and lower back, and this has never happened before on my TT bike in position or out of position, so it was quite a worrying thing to experience mid-race, and that really limited the amount of power that I was able to put out. I was really then just riding zone 2 from that point, about 20 or 30 watts lower than I had really hoped for, just because every time I tried to pick it up and pick up the watts going up a little hill or something, my hip and my back would just hurt too much, and I didn't want to actually injure myself. And so this, combined with some pretty terrible new roads in the course, if I'm honest, and when I say terrible, I mean single way roads with grass growing on the middle, so that you're pretty much stuck in a queue of people unless you're kind of going over the grass to overtake, which I definitely had to do sometimes. It was a little bit of carnage, and not knowing that beforehand definitely caught me off guard. I think I would have rode very differently if I'd have known that and tried to push even more aggressively at the start to kind of get more space going into those opportunities where I might get stuck behind people. But I was really disappointed coming off the bike. I think all those good vibes from the camp and the lead up and the swim had pretty much disappeared by the start of the run. I transitioned fairly well into the run. I felt pretty crap though when I started it, if I'm honest. My hip, my back was absolutely ruined for that first of 3 laps on the run, and I was pretty worried then, and after crossing the finish line, that I may have done some serious damage. I haven't, although it's definitely something that I'm aiming to strengthen going forward. I felt like I could still run steady and like a tempo pace, but nothing crazy. I was luckily able to maintain that pace. So last year when I was running, I ran faster, but I stopped once or twice a lap last year to walk because I was struggling a lot with just like aerobic fitness then. I think this time it was the exact opposite, and my aerobic fitness was really good, and I could have run faster, I think, if it wasn't for like the muscular and tendon pain that I was feeling in my hip and back. So that's obviously really frustrating, and to have swum slightly slower, biked, although the course is different, bike slightly slower and run a fair bit slower than last year is frustrating. It is not what I went there hoping to achieve, and that put me in a pretty bad mood, hence why this video didn't get made in the couple of weeks when I actually probably had more time to get this done after the race. It took me a while to reflect and absorb the performance that I was able to produce that day, and admittedly I don't think it was truly reflective of the fitness that I had then and have now, but it was still disappointing not to be able to show that fitness and show the improvements that I've made compared to last year. After the race, I really beat myself up about my performance, and that put me off training, and that made me a pretty grumpy person to be around. So thanks everyone, but especially Danny, for putting up with me in the week or two after the race. That's obviously not a productive thing to do, but it's really hard not to do that when you come into a race with expectations of doing better overall within your age group compared to last year. Whatever it is that you're using to kind of measure progress, having put a whole year of training in since last year's one, not improving was tough. But I do think that there were not excuses, but reasons why I wasn't able to show all of the fitness and hard work that I'd put in. And I'm sure having that camp and having that fitness made me put more pressure on myself, and maybe that's not what I need. And spoiler for the next race recap, but maybe I perform better when I don't have crazy amounts of pressure put on myself by myself, of course. But that was a real learning lesson to just try and enjoy the sport and enjoy racing, because it's a privilege to be able to do it. Also, from a training standpoint, I think I was lacking top end, and that's definitely something that I have worked on in the weeks since the race, and will continue to work on until my next race, which I will not tell you exactly what it is yet, but it's a biggie. So if you want to see the training vlogs and the race prep and the race recap video from that, definitely hit subscribe. But that's it. That is Outlaw Nottingham Half. That was my experience in 2024. Definitely not how I had hoped. I came away with much more positive vibes about the race last year, having really impressed myself. but lots of really important lessons have been learned this year, and I think it will make me a better, a stronger, and more resilient triathlete going forward. And that's all we can really hope for. So I will say thank you all so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please consider hitting subscribing, as that really means a lot to me. It gives a lot of validation while making these videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Good luck in your racing and training.